Now we got some sound. Yeah, okay, now we got some sound. Okay. I thought I turned it on. I must not have. I think I turned on the wrong one. So anyway, it hasn't been that long. Yeah, I know it hasn't been that long, but yeah, okay. Well, things happen. Okay, so anyway, it is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars. Therefore, it must be Zeta Story Corner. Again, yes, Zeta Story Corner again. And we are back after being off for a week because your wife was in the hospital. Yeah, that's right. My wife was in the hospital. And she is home and she is pretty well recovered now. And so we are back and we're going to pick up where we left off. So before we get too far, let's see who we got in the chat room. It's a good thing that we checked the chat room, or we wouldn't know the mic wasn't on. Yeah, that's right. We wouldn't know the mic wasn't on. Okay, so let's see. So we have. Okay, it's scrolling pretty. Okay, so scrolling up here. We have Donald. We have Crystal. We have Kelsey Lynn, Shlomo and Shoshi, Kat and David, Miriam, Veronica. And let's see, I think we have everybody, at least so far. And more to come. Yep, more to come. Okay. So, as we have been doing, we are going to, we have been promoting Reb Moshe. Yeah, Reb Moshe Steinerman's I Love Torah series. This broadcast, we are going to we are looking at Tikkun Shekhinah. This is off of the Rabbi's I Love Torah series. Wonderful, wonderful books. And he is offering them at cost on Amazon. And you can pick them up the book, which is a nice book, is only, I think it's only $7. Or you can get it on the Kindle for 99 cents. At that price, you could have the hard copy set, and you could have the Kindle set too, so you could carry it around with you on your smartphone or your tablet or your computer or whatever, and read it anytime. I myself kind of tend to like to have the book. I like to have I like the feel of a book. You have a lot. Yes, I do have a lot of books, but I like to be able to hold a book and everything. So anyway, so let's see. Just check the chat room here, and okay. So okay. So we do have, okay, we got sound and everything. So we're going to continue with our story. The king's son, yeah, the king's son and the son of the maid. So you're going to back up a little bit. Yeah, a few paragraphs. Okay. Okay, so let me go ahead and put you on your camera. And we'll get you over on yours. And there I am. Okay, so we are going to continue on with our story, The King's Son and the Son of the Maid, which was by Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. Okay, wonderful, wonderful story. So we back up a couple of paragraphs so that we remember where we were and where we left off. Okay, so remember we had the two that were switched, and through the through circumstances they kind of got lost in the woods and stuff like that. Okay, so we pick it up there. The servant answered that he had once been a king, and there had been a rumor about his having been exchanged and so forth. as was related before, for this was none other than the son of the serving maid. Remember, she was actually the maid of the queen. So she wasn't really a commoner. She was actually royalty. She was so anyway. And he had driven out the other son, the actual true king's son. After a while, it had occurred to him that he had been unjust, and he regretted it. He kept feeling sorry about the wicked deed that he had committed against the other son. One day he dreamed that the way to right the wrong was to relinquish his kingdom and travel as chance would take him, and in this way he would be able to make amends. He did not want to do this, but the dream reoccurred time and time again and upset him so much that he decided to obey. He abdicated his throne and wandered about until he finally ended up here, and now he had become a servant. Remember, he had to get some bread, he had to become the servant. Okay. The other youth listened to the whole story in silence, thinking to himself, I'll know how to deal with you. In the evening, the man of the forest returned and gave them food and drink, and they spent the night there. Just before dawn, they heard a tremendous laugh that made the whole forest tremble. The servant urged the king's son to ask the man of the forest what was going on. So the youth asked him, what is that great laugh that is heard at dawn? That is the sound of the day laughing at the night, answered the man of the forest. The night you have to turn the page. I know I have to turn the page. It just didn't want to cooperate. Okay, we go on. The night asked the day, why is it that whenever you come, I no longer have a name? The day bursts out laughing, and the night becomes day. That is the laughter that you hear at dawn. This seemed a great marvel to the king's son, that the day should laugh at the night. But he could not ask any more questions because of the man's amazing answer. With the morning, the man of the forest departed again. And during the day, the two companions ate and drank together in the house. When night fell, the man returned, and they ate and drank and spent the night there. A lot of eating and drinking. Anyway, at night they heard the sound of wild beasts roaring and making strange noises. The lion roared. Don't say it. Okay, I won't. The lion roared. The leopard howled. The birds whistled and screeched. each and every beast making its own sound. At first, they too were frightened, and they did not listen to the sound attentively. Eventually, they did begin to listen more carefully, and they found that they were listening to a melody. The animals were singing a wonderful song, so marvelously pleasant was this music that the more they listened to it, the more agreeable did it seem, till they felt all the pleasures in the world could not compare with the pleasure of listening to it. They told each other that they should remain where they were in the forest, for there they had food and drink and this wonderful sweet music that surpassed all the pleasures of the world. The servant urged his master to ask the man of the forest about the music. The youth asked him, and he replied, "The sun makes a garment for the moon. The creatures of the forest are very grateful to the moon, since the dominion of the beast is mainly at night. Sometimes they have to enter the dwelling places of men, and they cannot do this by day, because the moon does give them the great favor of lighting up the night for them. They decided to compose a new song for the moon." Oh, how nice of them, huh? This is the music that you hear. Now that they knew it was a song, they listened to the music even more intently than before, and were more impressed than ever with its wonderful sweetness. Now, didn't Dracula say something about that? Ah, the children of the night, what beautiful music they make. That's my Bela Lugosi imitation. That's not too bad. I have to tell you, I have to say that. It's not too bad. But thank you very much. Okay. We go back to the story. Why do you find this unique? I have an instrument made of leaves and colorful things that I inherited from my forefathers, who inherited it from their ancestors. Whenever this instrument is placed on any bird or beast, it immediately begins to play this same wonderful melody. After this, the great laughter was heard again, and it became day. The man of the forest left, and the true son of the king began to look for the instrument. He searched all over the room, but he did not find it. He did not dare go any further. The two were afraid to ask the man of the forest to lead them to the place where men lived. However, the man himself said that he would direct them to human habitation. Then he took out the instrument of which he had spoken and gave it to the king's true son. I give you this instrument as a gift, he said. Now you must know how to master it. The two then asked him, which way should we go? He answered that they must seek out a country called the foolish country with the wise king. They asked him in which direction they should set out to begin asking for this country. He showed them the way with his hand. I wonder if he lived in Michigan. Oh well. And then he told the real son of the king, go to this country, and there you will come into your greatness. Well, they set out. On their way, they looked out for some creatures on which they could try out the instrument to see if it would play, but they encountered no living being. Later, as they neared the town, they found an animal. They placed the instrument on it, and it began to play the music. They went on and on this way until they came to the country they were looking for. The country was surrounded by a wall and could be entered only by way of one gate. In order to get into this gate, one had to go around the wall for several miles. They went around until they reached the gate. But when they got there, they were not permitted to enter. The king of the country had died. Although he had a son to succeed him, the king had left a will in which he had written that whereas the kingdom had previously been called the foolish country with the wise king, now it should be called the reverse, the wise country with the foolish king. Whoever restored the former name to the kingdom so that it would be again called the foolish country with the wise king, he would become king. So no one was permitted to enter the country unless he first undertook to restore the former name of the kingdom. Can you undertake this task? They asked the youth. He could not. And so the two could not enter. The servant urged his master to turn back, but he did not wish to, because the man of the forest had told him to go to this country in order to come into his greatness. Meanwhile, another man arrived, riding on his horse. He also wanted to enter, but they would not let him pass for the same reason. Seeing the man's horse, the king's son took out his instrument. He placed it on the horse, and it immediately began to play the very marvelous melody. The man on the horse begged him to sell him the instrument, but the youth did not want to part with it. "What can you possibly give me in return for this marvelous instrument?" he asked. The man on the horse replied, "What can you do with this instrument of yours? Perhaps you can make a show of it, and someone will throw you a gold coin. But I know something better than your instrument, something that I received from my forefathers, with which one is able to comprehend one thing from another. If someone says a single word, it is possible, by means of this secret knowledge that has been handed down to me, to comprehend one thing from another. I have not yet revealed this knowledge to anyone in the world, but I am willing to teach it to you if you will give me the instrument." The king's true son decided that it would indeed be a wonderful thing to be able to comprehend one thing from another, and he gave him the instrument. The man on the horse then taught him how to comprehend one thing from another. The king's true son then returned to the gate in the wall, for he realized that he could now undertake to restore the country to its former name. He did not know how he was going to do this, but as he now was able to comprehend one thing from another, he realized that it could be done. Besides, what could he lose by trying? When he told the people at the gate that he would undertake the task, they allowed him to enter. The chief ministers were informed that someone had come who would undertake the task, and the youth was brought before them. They told him, "Know that we also are not fools. God forbid. It is just that the former king was such a great sage, and in comparison to him, we are all fools. That is why the land used to be called the foolish country with the wise king. With the passing of the king, his son, who is also a sage, has taken over the throne. In comparison with us, however, he is not all wise, and therefore the kingdom is now called the wise country with the foolish king." In his will, the old king stated that when we find a man so wise that he can restore the country to its former name, we should make him king. Such a man must be so wise that by comparison all of us are fools. When he becomes king, the country can again be called the foolish country with the wise king. The former king made it plain that his son was to relinquish the throne and turn over the kingdom to such a man when he appeared. Know then what you are undertaking. The ministers went on. The test of whether you are such a sage is this. There is a garden that was left by the former king. It is a very wondrous garden in which grows vessels made of metal, of silver and of gold. But it is impossible to enter this garden, for whenever someone enters it, he is immediately pursued. He is pursued, and he cries out, but he does not know or see who is pursuing him. In this way, he is pursued until he is driven from the garden. This is how we shall see how wise you are. We shall see whether you can enter the garden. The young man asked whether the person who entered was beaten. The ministers answered, the main thing is that he is pursued and does not know by whom, and he flees in great terror. So we have been told by those who have entered the garden. Okay, we are going to take our break now. We take a 6-minute break, and then we return. We shall see if he gets pursued and if he can pass the test. So everybody stay tuned, and we will be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
Is the microphone on? Yes, the microphone is on. Are you sure the microphone is on? Yes, I'm sure the microphone is on. I can see the little VU meter going back and forth. Okay, as long as you are sure. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for staying tuned. And now we will return back to our story of the king's son and the son of the maid. Okay. So we leave off here in the garden. The youth went out toward the garden. He saw that there was a wall around it, but the gate was open and there were no guards. You know, we forgot to show the book. Yes, I know we did forget to show the book. Again, we are showing Rabbi Moshe Steinerman's book during our broadcast, and this one is Tikkun Shekhinah, and there is the book there. Okay, so buy the book. You will enjoy it, trust me. Have I lied to you yet? Okay. Anyway, so he goes to the garden and there's no guard at the garden. Okay. So, to be sure, there was no need to watch over the garden. As he approached, he looked about him and saw a man, or rather a statue of a man, standing near the garden. He looked again and noticed an inscribed tablet stating that this man had been king hundreds of years ago, and that in his days there had been peace. But before his time and after it, there had been war. Since the son had learned to comprehend one thing from another, he realized that everything depended upon this man, and that if he entered the garden and was pursued, there was no need to flee. All he had to do was stand near this man, and he would be safe. Moreover, if this man was moved and placed inside the garden, it would be possible for anyone to enter safely. The king's son entered the garden, and as soon as he felt he was being pursued, he went over and stood next to the man just outside the gate. In this way, he came out in peace and unharmed. Others who had entered the garden had become terrified and fled as soon as the pursuit began, and so they had been vanquished. The king's son, by standing next to the man, came out in peace and unharmed. The ministers saw this and were astonished. The young man then gave instructions to have the statue moved into the garden. When this had been done, all of the ministers entered the garden and came out of it in peace. Then the ministers told the son, "Although we have seen what you have accomplished, you cannot yet be given the kingdom. We shall give you one more test. The throne of the former king is very high. Various birds and beasts, all carved of wood, stand around it. In front of the throne, there is a bed. Next to the bed, there is a table. And on the table is a lamp. Many roads, all paved in stone, extend in all directions from where the throne stands. No one knows the meaning of this throne and the roads. At a certain distance out along one of the roads, there is a golden lion that opens its mouth and devours anyone who approaches. Kind of like this. Just like that, huh? And the road continues beyond the lion. It is the same with all the other roads, each of which leads to a different direction. On the second road there is a leopard, also made of metal. And so it is with all the other roads, which extend throughout the entire country, each with its metal beast. No one understands the meaning of the throne or the objects on the road around it. You will be proven by whether you can comprehend all these things. Then they showed him the throne, and he saw that indeed it was very high. He approached it and examined it more closely, and he noticed that it was made of the same material as was the instrument that the man of the forest had given him. He looked again and noticed that on the topmost part of the throne a rose was missing. He understood that if this rose were in its place, the throne would have the same power as the musical instrument that played the music whenever it was placed on an animal or a bird. He looked even more closely and saw that the missing rose was in fact lying beneath the throne, where it picked up and set back on high. The throne would have the power of the marvelous instrument. The former king had arranged and hidden everything with such subtlety that no man could understand it, until such time as a very wise man came. He would understand it all and be able to put everything back in its place. In the same way, the king's son realized that the bed had to be shifted a little from where it was standing. The table, too, also had to be moved a little, a bissele, and also the lamp. In addition, each of the birds and the beast had to be put in its proper place. One must take this bird and put it in that place, and so on with all the other beasts. The king had arranged everything with cunning and wisdom in such a way that no one would be able to comprehend it until that wise man came who would restore things to their proper order. The lion at the turning of the road also had to be set elsewhere. And so with all the other beasts on all the other roads. The young man commanded that everything be put back in its proper order. The rose was to be picked up from beneath the throne and set back on high, and all the other things were to be moved around and arranged in their proper order according to his directions. When all was done, as he had instructed, everything began to give forth the sweetest, most marvelous music. Each object did what it was supposed to do. Then they gave him the kingdom. And the true son, who had now become king, said to the son of the maid, "Now I understand that I am indeed the true son of the king, and you are the true son of the maid." And that is the end of the story. That was a long story, huh? Okay. So we are going to go on to a new story called The Master of Prayer. It's a good story. One of my favorites. You can find? Yes, I can find it. Okay, so this one, this is a wonderful story. You are going to really like this one. Okay, we get started. And just for Donald, we are going to make it a cliffhanger. Okay. The story, The Master of Prayer. Once there was a master of prayer who spent all his days in prayer, in singing Tehillim, and in praise of God. He lived in a secluded spot, far from the habitations of man. From time to time, he would visit a town, and he would enter the home of one of the humble and the poor. There he would talk about the true purpose of life, which, he would say, is to spend all one's days in the worship of God and singing Tehillim and in praises. He would speak thus until at last people desired to join him. Such man, the master of prayer, would bring back with him to his secluded spot. A river flowed there, and there were trees of which they ate the fruits. As for their clothing, he did not mind what they wore. They spent their days in prayer and singing Tehillim and praises to God, and in confessions, fasting, and penitence. The master of prayer gave them his own books on prayer and Tehillim and confessions, and they studied these at all times. Time passed, and some of the followers became capable of drawing men's hearts to worship God. These, the master of prayer would sometimes permit to go into the towns to arouse men to worship of God. In this way, the master of prayer enticed people to serve God and lead them away from the world. After a while, this made an impression on the world, and then it became public knowledge. Men were suddenly disappearing from their homes. In one family, it was a son who vanished. In another, a son-in-law. No one knew where they had gone. Time passed, and it became known that there was a master of prayer who was going from place to place, enticing people to leave the towns and join him in worshiping God. People wanted to catch him, but could not, for he always appeared in a different guise. At one time as a beggar, at another time as a merchant, and so on and so forth. Furthermore, when he perceived that the man he was talking to did not grasp his intention, he would so confuse the listener with words that he had no idea what the master of prayer desired. The master of prayer acted so cleverly that no one could catch him. The master of prayer understood men's hearts and could provide each of his followers with what he needed. If he saw that this one of them needed to wear garments embroidered with gold, he would provide them. But if it happened that a rich man joined him and he needed to go around in tattered rags, he would provide these too. He knew what was necessary for each and every one. All the people whom the master of prayer had drawn to God found fasting and penance dearer to them than any worldly delight. In those days, there was a country of wealth. All its inhabitants were rich, but their customs were very strange. The measure of everything was money, and the importance and rank of every individual was determined by his wealth. A man who possessed so many thousands or millions was accorded a certain rank, and another who owned a different sum of money was of another rank, and so on and so forth. And he who possessed so and so many millions was king. They also had flags. If someone possessed such and such a sum and was of such and such a rank, he was entitled to a special flag. Another who possessed a different sum and was of a different rank had another flag. It was clearly laid down how much money a person must possess in order to be of a particular rank and have a particular flag. If a citizen of the country possessed no more than a certain sum of money, he was considered to be an ordinary human being. However, if he had less than that sum, he was held to be a beast or a bird in human form. There were various beasts and birds. One who possessed a certain small sum of money was a lion, that is a human lion, not a good-looking lion like me, but anyway. And one who possessed even less was some kind of bird. In any event, a man with little money was not considered to be a human being. It became known in the world that such a country existed. The master of prayer sighed and said, who knows how much further this folly may lead them astray? Some of his followers heard him and, without asking about it, decided to go to the country of wealth. They felt great pity for the people who had strayed so far in their lust for money, especially since the master of prayer had said that those people might sink even deeper into error. So they went there in hope that they would be able to turn the people back from their ways. And that, my friend, is where we are going to end our story for tonight. I want to thank everybody for being here. Don't forget, on Wednesday night is the Torah study with Rabbi A and Rabbi Reuben. And then, of course, Friday, Kabbalat and Ma'ariv, the Shabbat service. And on Shabbat morning, Shachrit and Musaf at 10 a.m. And of course, next Monday, God willing, we will be back and we will find out what happens to the master of prayer and these foolish people and their money. Until then, my dear friends, we shall say, Laila Tov.